What's up? The new Sea of Thieves update is out. So I thought I'd bring you guys a tutorial on how to defeat the new world event that is included in the update. The new world event, I'm calling it the Burning Blade. That's the name of the ship that you defeat. Um, you could call it the Ghost Fleet. I'm not sure what we're going to end up calling it, but this is just going to be a real quick breakdown of the different types of ships, their different attacks, things to watch out for, and some strategy. So we'll just hop right into it. So the first thing I wanted to cover real quickly is supplies. So if you were doing the normal Skelly fleet, you would need lots of supplies. You would need 200 plus cannonballs, a bunch of planks. And so I think a lot of people would assume it's going to be the same for this. Um, and it kind of is. It kind of depends, I guess. So we went into this one in particular, I believe, with not much more than starter supplies. And so I'll talk about it more as we go through the video, but one of the advantages of this is that you can actually end up with more supplies at the end than what you started with because they drop so many. So as you defeat some of these ships, and we'll get into that, some of them will drop supply crates. So if you pick those up, they generally will have around 30 or so cannonballs as well, 30 or so planks of wood. So you can definitely come into this without an optimal amount of supplies, but just keep in mind you are going to be using a lot of cannonballs and a lot of planks. So if you feel uncomfortable in that situation, it may be best to stock up on some of those things before coming. However, if you're an experienced player, you will probably be able to make it through with basically just going straight from the base straight to the event. So that's kind of the first topic I want to cover. Second, I want to talk real quickly about the tax of these new ghost ships. So it's a little bit different, or it's completely different than anything we've seen on Sea of Thieves. So for the most part, there are three kinds of cannonballs that these ghost ships will shoot at you. The first one's called the Phantom Cannonball, and it's just a regular cannonball. It's going to do damage just like a regular cannonball would. Nothing different there, nothing special. The second type of cannonball is the Flame Phantom. This is essentially just a firebomb. They'll shoot it at you, it'll catch your ship on fire. It's really not much different than just a regular firebomb. And the third type of cannonball is it's called a Wraith. And so basically, what it's going to look like a giant head coming at you. It moves pretty slow, but if it hits you, it's essentially the same as if a Meg hits you or a Kraken hits you. So it's gonna knock your ship back, and it's gonna put I believe about 3 holes in your ship. So those are the three kind of cannon attacks that you'll see when you come into the fleet. So in addition, if you start following behind the ghost ships, they're gonna drop mines, and so they look like ghost TNT barrels, but they're a little bit different. So they're not going to only cause damage if you hit them, but they also have a timer on them. So if you're near them when the timer goes off, they're going to explode and you'll take damage. So those are the main kinds of attacks that you'll see. Now, in addition to that, there's a couple of other things to watch out for. And so the first being if you run into these ships, they're going to pass through you. They're not solid ships. So it's not going to knock you back or anything like that. However, if they do pass through you, you're going to take a pretty good amount of damage. So uh, from our experience doing it this first time, you're going to take 4 holes in your ship if you pass through one of the ships. So you definitely want to try and avoid them uh, if you can. And then the last couple are really non-damage things, but a couple things I just want to make you aware of. So first being when you destroy one of the ships, they have an explosive death. It's not going to cause any damage, but if your ship's close enough, it's going to knock your ship back. And then lastly, and it can be a little bit confusing, but these ships essentially will teleport. So they'll move around an island. Um, However, if they get too far from your ship, they'll kind of disappear and then they may reappear behind you. So keep in mind as you're fighting these ships, there's portals and they can basically teleport to different locations. Um, okay, so that's the attacks that you'll encounter when you go through these go into this event. Um, the next thing I want to talk about is the types of ships. So there's basically three types of ships that you're going to encounter, and each of them is going to require a different amount of successful attacks on them. So the first kind of ship, and that's what you're seeing here in the first round that we just completed, is the grunt. So that ship that we're attacking currently, that's considered a grunt. You can tell it looks a lot like a skelly ship, but um, like a ghost version as far as the look, and the sails are tattered. Those are going to take 3 cannonballs. So 3 cannonballs, it's complete. The second kind of ship, which you can see on the screen now, it's going to have the full sails, and it's going to have a kind of like an emissary flag that you'll be able to see on the top. So those are um, those are formation leaders. And so those take 10 cannonballs to hit. And then also the advantage of these is that they're going to drop loot. So that's the second kind of ship. And then the last one is going to be the final round, and you're going to encounter the Burning Blade. And so that's kind of the boss of this event. It's called the Burning Blade. It looks very similar to a formation leader, except the sails are solid, and you'll see that in a minute when we start finding it, but you'll be able to tell which one's the Burning Blade. And the Burning Blade takes 20 cannon shots to defeat. So that's a different kind of ships. Another thing I kind of want to point out here, um, so the formation leaders and the Burning Blade, they're obviously going to drop loot, but also some of the grunts will randomly drop the ammo crates. So you can kind of see here, we defeated the formation leader. It drops the loot. Well, in the to mark the loot, they'll have these ghosts swimming around the top of them to indicate there's loot in the water. So for the two loot dropping ships, it'll indicate loot, but for the grunts, it'll randomly drop the a storage crate. And so that's kind of what we talked about previously as far as the supplies. Make sure to keep your eye on those. Those are the ones that are going to give you the cannonballs and the wood to help you if you don't have enough supplies to begin with. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is the waves. So here, right now, we've completed the first wave. So the first wave is going to spawn 10 grunts. And so as you defeat the grunts, it's going to keep spawning more of them. Um, Once you defeat 7 grunts, that's going to be the completion of the first wave. The second wave is what you just saw. There's going to be 2 formation leaders that are going to have grunts around them. Um, and so you don't have to defeat the grunts. You have to defeat both formation leaders to complete the round. Once you defeat the formation leaders, they're going to drop the loot, and it's going to disperse their grunts. Now, that being said, it's probably advisable to go ahead and defeat the grunts. It only takes 3 cannonballs. It just makes it a little bit easier to defeat the round. So kind of to get caught up to the video now, where we are in the video is the third round, I believe. Or no, I'm sorry. It looks like we're still in the second round. We're going to defeat the second formation leader. So the third round is going to be the same as the first. It's the exact same setup. You're going to have you're going to have 10 grunts. You have to defeat 7 grunts, and then you'll move on to the next round. So the last round is going to be that's where you're going to run into the Burning Blade. So I want to talk a little bit more about this round, because depending on what you're trying to do, you can approach it different ways. So once you defeat Burning Blade, which is 10 cannonballs, the event ends. You've completed it. All the other ships will disperse, and you'll be good to collect all your loot. So that being said, if you defeat the Burning Blade without defeating the formation leaders that spawn with him, you won't get their loot. So their loot will go away, and you'll kind of miss out. So it's kind of up to you. If you're looking to do this event for loot, it may be advisable to go ahead and try and defeat the formation leaders, because you're going to get a little bit more loot. If you're trying to just complete it for completion's sake and to just get straight to the burning blade, you can just focus him. You hit him with 20 cannonballs, and the event's over. All right. Um, so all that being said, I kind of want to talk about strategy a little bit. So this video you're watching, this is literally the first time we went into the event after the update. We had never done the event before. Now we did do one of the voyages prior to coming into this event, so we had a little bit of experience. But if you do this the right way, it's not difficult in my opinion. We did this in a sloop with 2 people, and it was very manageable. Um, and so I just want to talk a little bit about how we went about doing that. So one of the big things you'll notice is we never really go into the broadside of these ships. In fact, we try to keep our distance from these ships as we were fighting, and I think that's a really important point. It's a little bit easier to do in a sloop. If you're in a galleon, it's probably going to be a little bit more difficult as far as the maneuverability. But ultimately, these ships can only shoot you like any other ship, and that's if you get beside them. So if you can keep your distance, and for sure, you don't want to end up behind them because we talked about the TNT barrels, and you could kind of see them dropping them there. So you don't want to be directly behind them, but you don't want to get right next to them. We kind of get next to them right here, and you can kind of see we pay the price a little bit. Um, so that was kind of one of the big strategies we kept that made it a little bit easier on us, was to not get in their broadside. Now, as I say that, that's exactly what we're doing here, and as you can see, we're having to repair pretty frantically. Okay, so my next tip, and this is for every round as well, is the ships will disperse, right? You'll have groups of them that'll be very close to each other, and then you'll end up having one or two that kind of get out on their own. So that's what we try to do. We try to approach the ones that kind of were out by themselves, finish those off first, and then try and pick apart the ones that are grouped. It just made it a lot easier, kind of taking on one at a time. If you do this wrong, and of the times we've had trouble and of the examples where I saw other people have trouble, they just went straight into a large group of the ships. And when you do that, when you get in between 2 or 3 or 4 of them, they light you up pretty good. Like here, they set you on fire. They hit you with the Wraith cannons, which will knock your ship back. It does a lot of damage. They'll pass through you, which does a lot of damage. So all of those things you really do want to avoid. Here we're fighting the final boss, so we're getting close to defeating him. Um, and as you can see, it takes a little bit more cannons. Now, all that being said, if you kind of follow that strategy I spoke of, I think you shouldn't have too much trouble doing this event. And so I kind of want to wrap this up very briefly by talking about the loot and also a couple of accommodations. So, real briefly, the loot that's going to be dropped, you're going to get a chest. You're going to get chests of the dams, skull of the dams, captain skull of the dams, ashes of the dam, and then the cannonball crate of the dam. So the most valuable things in that stack is the captain skull of the dam, I think, obviously, but also the cannonball crate of the dam. It's going to drop some unique cannonballs that are unique to the game, and it's those same cannonballs that we talked about that the ghost ship used. So you'll be able to get some of those and use them against other player ships. And there's also some accommodations for using those cannonballs against other player ships. So you for sure want to take advantage of those and pick those up and use them on other player ships. Okay, so that's the loot. The last thing I want to talk about, there's a couple of accommodations that you can get a couple of sales from. So there's a burning blade sales. If you defeat 10 burning blades, you'll get those sales. And then also there's the ghost captain sales. It was a little less clear how many skulls you have to get, but ultimately you have to get the captain skulls of the damned and you have to sell them. After so many of those, you'll get those sales. So that kind of wraps up the video. I think I try to cover it very quickly, as far as what you need to do, what you have to watch out for, and some of the strategy. Um, if and if you do all those things, I think you could pretty easily complete this yourself, even on a sloop, as you kind of saw us do. All that being said, guys, if you could do me a favor and hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, be sure to like it. If you have any questions, leave a comment in the comment section, and I'll get back to you, and for sure answer any questions you guys have. Also, the clip that I showed in the background, that was me streaming on Twitch. So if you want to watch me live, you can head on over to twitch.tv/whoopswee. Give me a follow. I stream pretty frequently. I don't have a set schedule because for the most part I've been streaming every day. So you'll for sure be able to catch me over there. Um, but anyway, guys, that's all I have. Um, Again, if you have any questions, leave it in the comments section. But thanks for watching, and be sure to stick around for another video.